Good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Greater Naples. It's good to be with you this morning. My name is Patty Bryan, and I am the worship associate for today. If you're new to us, we hope you make yourself known in the live chat on our YouTube page so that we can say hello, and we also hope that you might email our administrator at office@uunaples.org. And then we can include you in our regular news blasts, which relate all of the excellent things that are going on here at UUCGN. There's so much going on, and we hope that you'll sign up and check out the email notices that are sent out each week. Our news blasts offer you links to all sorts of learning and fellowship opportunities. There's still room at the drumming circle that takes place on the pavilion this afternoon at 2 o'clock. But you do need to register either by email or by phone. It's a great time, and we gather safely at a distance, so you don't need to hesitate to come. At 4 o'clock this afternoon, out in Immokalee, there is a vigil in support of the Morales family and the Coalition of Immokalee Workers in their work towards justice in the police shooting of Nicholas Morales here in Collier County last fall. Look for details for these and more upcoming events in this morning's Sunday news. Or check out our website at www.uunaples.org. During these 3 weeks, while our minister, the Reverend Tony Fisher, is away, our pulpit is being graced by Reverend Barbro Hansson. Originally from Sweden, Reverend Hansson came to the U.S. in 1974 and was introduced to the world of Unitarian Universalism by her American husband. After acclimating to the new culture, Barbro became an active lay leader, first at the local level and then at the district level. She felt the call to ministry at the event that she will be speaking about today. Reverend Hansson graduated from Meadville Lombard Theological School in 1998 and has served congregations in Harrisonburg, Virginia, Plattsburgh, New York, and Brattleboro, Vermont, before retiring from full-time ministry in 2014. We're very grateful to have her with us. Back with us this week are singer-songwriters Reggie Harris and Greg Greenway, and they will perform 2 selections today. Reggie and Greg are both Unitarian Universalist musicians and social justice activists, as well as being friends of Reverend Hansson. Also joining us is vocalist Sabrina Williams. Sabrina is a Marco Island nurse with a wonderful vocal style, and she has teamed with our music coordinator, Stu Shelton, on a number of projects. And once again, we're grateful to have Steve Espinoza leading our hymns this morning. And now, let's settle ourselves into this time of worship with the morning's prelude. A Religion of Social Concern is by Louis McGee. He was a minister in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. His father had been a slave. While McGee was serving as Army chaplain in World War II, he was struggling with the doctrines of his church. He was a humanist, and he wanted to be a Unitarian minister. He was told, however, that Unitarian congregations were overwhelmingly white and wouldn't accept a black minister. If he wanted to be a Unitarian minister, he would have to gather his own congregation. After the war, he entered Meadville Lombard Theological School to become a Unitarian minister. After graduation, he and his wife started the Free Religious Fellowship on the south side of Chicago. Their congregation grew to almost 100 members, mostly black, a few white, some Japanese. After a few years, McGee served a Unitarian congregation in Flint, Michigan, and then he went to California, where in 1961 he became the first black man called as the senior minister of a mostly white congregation. Good for him. Here is A Religion of Social Concern by Louis McGee. Ours is a religion of social concern, a religion of intellectual and ethical integrity, a religion that emphasizes the dynamic conception of history and the scientific worldview, a religion that stresses the dignity and worth of the person as a supreme value, and goodwill as a creative force in human relations. This religion can and ought to become a beacon from which this kind of faith shines. Now let's share the chalice lighting response with the words you find on your screen as John Forsyth lights our chalice. May this flame stir our hearts and remind us of our mission to become truly welcoming, to grow in mind and spirit, and to widen the circle of peace, justice, and love.
Faith of the larger liberty, source of the light expanding, law of the church that is to be, all bondage notwithstanding. Faith of the free, by thee we live, by all thou givest, and shalt give our loyalty commanding. Faith for the people everywhere, whatever their role
Greetings from New Hampshire. It's good to be with you again. I can almost feel the warmth of Florida surrounding me here right now. This is my third and last Sunday in your virtual pulpit, and I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to share my journey as an immigrant and my experiences as a Unitarian Universalist. I want to thank all who helped put together these three services, especially people behind the scenes, but also the worship associates. Lena Neal for leading the service 2 weeks ago, Joanne Swank last Sunday, and Patty Bryan today. Thank you. And thank you to Stu and Steve for your wonderful contributions. Last Sunday, I spoke about my life in Sweden, and after coming to the US, learning about slavery, race, and racism, the first 10 years, I didn't learn much other than trying to assimilate to a new culture. That changed during the second 10 years and had a lot to do with Unitarian Universalism. As my ignorance, innocence, avoidance, and denial peeled off and my eyes opened up, I became more and more aware of the reality of racism and how I benefited from white privilege. 2 Sundays ago, I shared my experience at the 1993 General Assembly of the Unitarian Universalist Association and the lessons I learned from the Thomas Jefferson birthday ball: to listen deeply, to be in right relationship, and to live our shared Unitarian Universalist values. Today, my focus turns toward the arc of Unitarian Universalism and 3 major racial controversies. But first, here is a little tidbit from our Unitarian past. In addressing the Massachusetts Anti-Slavery Convention at the State House in Boston on January 29, 1859, Theodore Parker, a Unitarian minister and anti-slavery activist, said this: "I do not pretend to understand the moral universe. The arc is a long one. My eyes reaches but little ways. I cannot calculate the curve and complete the figure by the experience of sight. I can divine it by conscience. And from what I see, I'm sure it bends toward justice." Let us sing, Spirit of Life.
Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
Each week, during our service, we set aside a time of community, a time to recognize that individually and together, we all have our ups and downs, a time to share with one another our individual joys and sorrows, and in doing so, build bonds of love and understanding. Not being together in person for this time is one of the hardest parts of our forced separation. We may value the social aspect of congregational life, but these moments of sharing on Sunday bind us together, reminding us all of our humanity and our compassion. The Caring Corner, now being sent out every Tuesday, is a way for each of us to share our news with the UUCGN community and to learn and respond to others' joys and sorrows. If you have something you'd like to share in this way, please email our office administrator at office@uunaples.org. This morning, we remember those in our lives who are struggling right now or who are celebrating milestones. And we honor those in the wider community who are on the front lines of health care or on the front lines of justice work. Those who have lost loved ones to the virus or whose lives have been affected by the ongoing economic impact. If you're thinking of someone right now, please take this time to light a candle or say a name or remember them in some way. As we enter into our time of meditation, it might be good to acknowledge that our lives are always in flux, buffeted by things within and beyond our scope to change. Thus, it's sometimes better to lean into the motion and find within new ways to live. This is called A Legacy of Caring by THANDEKA. A few words on THANDEKA. She was born Sue Booker. Her mom was an artist and a teacher, and her dad was a Baptist minister and a seminary professor. She received the name THANDEKA from Archbishop Desmond Tutu in 1984. It means beloved or one who is loved by God. She studied journalism at the University of Illinois and Columbia, earned her MA in the history of religion at UCLA, and her PhD at Claremont. She was ordained as a UU minister in 2001, has taught at 6 great universities, written several books, is a former talk show host, and an Emmy Award-winning producer. Now, this is a talented lady. Here is A Legacy of Caring by THANDEKA. Despair is my private pain, born from what I have failed to say, failed to do, failed to overcome. Be still, my inner self. Let me rise to you. Let me reach down into your pain and soothe you. I turn to you to renew my life. I turn to the world, the streets of the city, the worn tapestry of brokerage firms and crack dealers, private estates, and personal things in a bag lady's cart. This common world I love anew, as the lifeblood of generations who refuse to surrender their humanity in an inhumane world, and that courses through my veins. From within this world, my despair is transformed into hope, and I begin anew the legacy of caring. Now, let's share a few seconds of shared silence.
very strange, enchanted boy. They said he wandered very far, very far, over land and sea. A little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. And then one day, one magical day, he came my way. And as we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this is what he said: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is to love and be loved in return.
Four years ago, in March of 2017, a conflict about hiring practices at the UUA erupted on social media and spread like wildfire, with critics claiming that the UUA favored hiring white people for senior staff roles. I cannot possibly do justice to the complexity of this conflict, but to make a long story short, as the conflict unraveled, detailed information came to light, like the fact that out of 56 people with supervisory responsibilities at the UUA, only 8 were people of color, less than 14%. Reading Facebook posts and blogs online, it soon became clear to me that this crisis was at the heart of our denomination and who we are as a people of faith. We were dealing with systemic and institutional racism, and it didn't look good at all. I nearly lost my faith at that time. Have we learned nothing at all? I wondered. 2 weeks after the hiring conflict came to light, the then president of the UUA, Peter Morales, resigned. His term was to expire at the end of June. With no president at the table, it fell on the Board of Trustees to appoint an acting president for the remainder of the term. And when the announcement of their decision broke, I rejoiced. 3 Black people were appointed to lead the Unitarian Universalist Association as co-presidents until the election at the 2017 General Assembly. The Reverend Bill Sinkford, the Reverend Sophia Betancourt, and Dr. Leon Spencer. My faith was restored, and I was so proud. This momentous act got me thinking about racial conflicts in our denomination. first, I thought about the TJ birthday ball debacle. As that crisis erupted, immediately after the letter of protest about celebrating Thomas Jefferson, my minister, David McPherson, became quite unsettled and alarmed. He was remembering an event that took place in the late 1960s when the empowerment controversy threatened to tear apart the Unitarian Universalist Association. That controversy is far too complex for me to cover in detail, but I will give a brief tour. Keep in mind that the Unitarian Universalist Association came about in 1961 when the Universalist Church of America and the American Unitarian Association merged. Unitarians and Universalists had already supported the civil rights movement, and now, as Unitarian Universalists, members and clergy of UU congregations joined African American activists in the cause for civil rights and racial justice. There was tremendous social upheaval, riots and protests and marches were rocking this nation, along with the murders of a number of civil rights leaders. I am sure you remember. Our denomination at that time included many African American members. And as Black and white UUs became more and more actively engaged, different groups formed because people had different ideas about how to do this important work. Conflicts soon began to emerge. It was a painful time all the way around. In the fall of 1967, one of the many groups that had formed within the UUA demanded that a Black Affairs Council be established, a group for the purpose of Black self-determination. The group also demanded financial support in the amount of $1 million. The Black Affairs Council was established in February 1968 by the very first meeting of the National Conference of Black Unitarian Universalists. A few months later, and in direct response to the formation of pro-empowerment groups, a group of Black and white Unitarian Universalists formed a pro-integration group, which became known as Black and White Action. It too was promised denominational funding, but in smaller amount. The Black Affairs Council and Black and White Action did not see eye to eye. There was a great deal of animosity between them. In writing about this controversy and what was happening at the 1968 General Assembly in Cleveland, Mark Morrison Reed had this to say, and I quote, "In the GA business meeting, the Black Affairs Council, known as BAC, funding proposal was placed on the agenda. And in an atmosphere of extraordinary emotional tension, the proponents of Black and White Action and the Black Affairs Council competed for the support of the delegates. On the third day of the assembly, the delegates voted 836 to 327 to fund the Black Affairs Council at $250,000 a year for 4 years. In the aftermath of Martin Luther King's death, what white person, given the guilt they felt, was going to vote against a resolution coming out of the Black Affairs Council. The delegates also voted to give $50,000 to Black and White Action over the protest of the Black Affairs Council, end of quote. Subsequent to that General Assembly, more meetings were held with hostility building, and it all came crashing down at the 1969 General Assembly. The empowerment controversy came to a head when about 400 people staged a walkout during that General Assembly. The controversy nearly undid the Unitarian Universalist Association. That was at that time only about 8 years old. Back at the 1993 General Assembly in Charlotte, North Carolina, my minister was not the only one who remembered what had happened in the late 1960s. Many people feared that the Thomas Jefferson conflict, too, could result in a walkout. The last time Hope Johnson and I were together was at the 2018 General Assembly in Kansas City. On the occasion of the 25th anniversary of the 1993 General Assembly, we, together with Leon Spencer and Wayne Arneson, gave a presentation titled 25 Years Later, the TJ Ball. How I wish we had signed up to have that presentation video recorded. It was quite an impressive event, as a number of participants in that at that program, attendees, added to the stories that Wayne, Leon, Hope, and I had. In any case, Hope and I wanted very much to have music be a part of that presentation, so we invited Reggie Harris and Greg Greenway to sing several of their songs. One of those was Mighty Long Way. When writing that song, Greg was inspired by the late U.S. Representative John Lewis and his journey from Troy, Alabama, where he was born in 1940, to the U.S. Capitol building in 1986. Lewis's office window looked out over the National Mall and the Lincoln Memorial.
Oh, it's a mighty long way, ooh, from over yonder. Ooh, it's a mighty long way, ooh, from there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. Oh, it's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way, from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way, from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. Every child born is a revolution, is a revolution, with a song inside. Some won't hear it, oh, some hear nothing else. You'll sing night and day just to keep that song alive. Oh, it's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way, from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way, from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, that we can make that walk from there to here. One more time. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. Now when you got a dream, you got to stand up and shout it loud and clear. What's that I'm hearing? It's the voice of the people singing that we will make that walk from there to here. Everybody, oh, it's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here. One last time. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from over yonder, from over yonder. It's a mighty long way, it's a mighty long way from there to here, there to here. We're gonna take it, oh yes, one step at a time, so that we can make that walk from there to here, so that we can make that walk from there to here, so that we can make that walk from there to here.
It's a mighty long way, but we can make that walk from there to here. There, of course, is the past. Here is our yearning for civil rights and racial justice. I think that might have been the way Theodore Parker felt when he spoke about the arc of the moral universe before the Civil War. And I believe Parker understood clearly that the arc does not bend on its own accord. The arc of the moral universe bends toward justice only and only when we act together and apply our collective strength, bending toward justice. The three controversies I have outlined, spanning 48 years and taking place 24 years apart, are ones I consider significant milestones. Each one sent shockwaves through the Unitarian Universalist Association and clearly point to the existence of institutional and systemic racism and to white privilege and white supremacy in our denomination. However, they also represent some progress that we had, in fact, been able to bend the arc. The first one, the empowerment controversy, threatened to undo Unitarian Universalism. It left deep scars and wounds that never healed. The second one, the TJ birthday ball debacle, had no staged walkout, though some people did leave that General Assembly and Unitarian Universalism. The bending toward justice is seen in how we were able to stay together in relationship and in conversation with each other. A small step forward on the journey toward racial justice. The third conflict, the hiring conflict, did not take place at a General Assembly and had no staged walkout. But it was widely experienced via social media. The bending toward justice at that time is seen in how the UUA Board of Trustees appointed 3 Black people to serve as acting co-presidents of the association. Another small step forward. And though we made progress, the pace was too slow, way too slow. Since the merger in 1961, there should have been much more bending toward justice, much more. Now, as an immigrant, I learned about slavery, race, and racism in this country. And I had to come to terms with the racism and white supremacy woven into the fabric of my native land. At the 1993 General Assembly in Charlotte, North Carolina, I learned 3 important lessons from the TJ birthday ball debacle, the ball that did not break us. Live in accordance with the principles of Unitarian Universalism. Listen deeply and be in right relationship. Something else from that GA stuck with me. As I mentioned 2 Sundays ago, a whole day had been set aside for racial justice programming. One of the featured speakers was Mark Morrison Reed, who, when in seminary, did research to find ordained African Americans in our faith tradition. He did. And his research became a book, Black Pioneers in a White Denomination. At that Racial Justice Day presentation where he spoke, Morrison Reed said, and I quote, "Our history in regard to racial justice is brave enough to make you proud, tragic enough to make you cry, and inept enough to make you laugh once the anger passes. We also have a future," he continued. "Today's task is to learn from what was and move on. To move on will mean creating a vision for the future. May concern for our faith and love for one another guide our efforts." End of quote. In the hiring debacle of 2017, while thinking about these 3 milestone controversies, it became clear to me that it is essential to be vigilant and intentional about racial justice. To be true to the principles and values of Unitarian Universalism, we have the responsibility to learn from what was, to better understand white privilege and white supremacy, and to be true to our shared vision of justice for all. And I must add, as profoundly tragic this pandemic is that we are living through right now, as horrid as the past 4 years of hate-mongering and incompetence has been, And as spine-chillingly frightening the January 6th insurrection was, I think we're standing at the cusp of a paradigm shift. And I believe we can walk from there to here to make real the goal we have for a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. At hand is the opportunity to dismantle institutional and systemic racism within our faith tradition, within our congregations, and within society at large. We can do this, and we will all be richer for it. Bending toward justice. May it be so.
Now is the time for us to express our gratitude for this community, its work, its vision, and all the ways in which it nourishes our lives. From its welcoming doors and sheltering walls to its good and generous people, from the sanctuary of the Memorial Garden to its outreach in the wider community. For all these things and for the ways it works magic in your life, this morning's offering for the ongoing mission of this congregation will be gratefully received. Please consider mailing a contribution today. The address is here on the screen. Or you can go to www.uunaples.org, where you'll find a donate button and where you can find out a lot more about this congregation.
Oh, well, I learned as a child there's two ways to see the world as it is and the way it could be. Some people say that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. No, they see the hole in the fabric that must be sewn. They see the wave blockaded and they roll back the stone. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. Yes, some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. Now, I've seen the toll taken, the tears that were shed. I've seen the journey started and the ripples spread. Still people say, well, that's just not my problem. Some people do what must be done. No, they see the hole in the fabric that must be sewn. They see the wave blockaded and they roll back the stone. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. Yes, some people do what must be done. Well, they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. Yes, some people do what must be done. They do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done. They see the day beyond the horizon, and they do what must be done.
Our benediction this morning comes from retired UU minister Mel Hoover. Mel first learned about Unitarian Universalism watching the march in Selma, Alabama. There were white people marching with the black civil rights activists. He found out that many of those white people were Unitarian Universalists, and he wanted to learn more. After graduating from Ohio State, he entered a divinity school there, and after graduation, he was first ordained as a deacon in the Episcopal Church of Southern Ohio. He had refused to be ordained as a minister because that path was not open to women. He currently serves in the UU congregation of Charleston, West Virginia, as co-minister with his wife, the Reverend Rose Eddington, and he received the UUA's Distinguished Service Award in 2013. Spirit of the Pioneer. We can't change the past, but we can learn from it and build on it. We can't control the future, but we can shape it and enhance the possibilities for our children and our grandchildren. We can't discern in the present the fullness of our actions and their impact, but we can be pioneers in our time, exploring fully the crevices and cracks where knowledge and new insights might be found. We can explore our spectrum of relationships and confront our complacency and certainty about the way things are. We can dare to face ourselves in our entirety, to understand our pain, to feel the tears, to listen to our frustration and confusion, and to discover new capacities and capabilities that will empower and transform us. In the spirit of the pioneer, let us now go forth.